Okay, so hi everyone. So welcome to our webinar, Student Entrepreneurship from Campus to Company. My name is Mengqing Kan. I am a PhD student at the University of Toronto and also a member of ISIE Student Board. I'm very honored to coordinate this session, and I would like to acknowledge that this has been a group effort. So thank you to our team, including Federica, who helped organize this event. And also, I want to just warmly welcome and thank all three speakers, Emily, Fernando, and Brendan. So thank you so much for your willingness to share your experience and insights with us. So for today's session, the format will be, first of all, we will begin with a short introduction for each of you. So you can do an introduction for yourself and also your businesses. And also then we will move into a panel discussion because we collected some questions through our questionnaire during the webinar promotion period. So we are going to asking those questions. And depending on if we have more audiences join, we may have opened the floor to the audience for live Q&A at the end. Yeah, so with that, let's just get started. I think, Brandon, you are the first on my screen. Would you mind just beginning with your introduction?
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me. Happy to be here. Apologies for the background of where I am. I thought I'd get back to the Airbnb before having to do this, but I'm actually still at a customer site. So that's the real greenhouse background and the nice 11 p.m. dark CET time. But that kind of background on myself. So I'm co-founder, CEO for Growers. We are building autonomous harvesting robots and analytic robots starting inside greenhouse farms, but ultimately really with a mission to make all of our healthy food production more sustainable, more cost effective, and really more accessible for everyone. Quick background on myself. So before this, I only did an undergrad, so I graduated just a bachelor's in electrical engineering out of University of Pittsburgh. Before starting for Growers, to be honest, had no idea when I went into university that this is what I would want to be doing. Originally, was really interested in neural prosthetics, and then thought I was going to go through, become a professor, and just do research. So clearly took a very different route. So happy to go more into kind of how that whole path unfolded. But I guess the quick high level on for Growers, I give the background, but kind of our stage. We closed our Series A at the end of last year. To date, we've raised over 15 million in venture funding. We're about 30 people based out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, but we also have team members in Canada, in the Netherlands, and soon to be Australia. We have robots running across all three of those different areas. And are really kind of excited to be deploying robots and kind of bringing healthy food to everyone. For anyone who's in the US, if you buy any nature fresh tomatoes, you might actually already have eaten tomatoes that were harvested by our systems.
Interesting. Yeah, thank you so much for the introduction. Emily, would you mind doing your introduction next?
Yeah, sure. I also have some slides, and congrats on the Series A, Brandon. That's amazing.
Thank
Oh,
you.
Yes.
I'm
Yep.
gonna
Okay.
send a request.
Awesome.
Okay. Okay, so hi everyone, I'm Emily. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Genuine Taste. So we're a food tech, biotech startup based in Toronto. So as Mengqing mentioned, I'm actually also in the same research group as her. So I'm a current PhD student at the University of Toronto. Bit of a unique case. My PhD, well, maybe it's not unique. We'll see with the rest of the prisoners, but my PhD is actually not super related to the startup. They're both in the area of climate change mitigation. So happy to chat more about expanding into areas beyond your PhD. So as I mentioned, I'm the co-founder and CEO of Genuine Taste, and we're working on a novel bio-based fat ingredient to improve the flavor and nutrition of alternative protein ingredients. So if you think in terms of global emissions, the food sector and conventional agriculture actually make up around 20% of GHG emissions. So this is one of the most neglected sectors and most difficult to decarbonize. And there are a lot of great alternatives out there in terms of alternative protein, but the biggest issue is a lot of them don't particularly taste very good. So there are real struggles with consumer adoption. So a lot of current plant-based products, they have off notes and bitterness. When you cook them, all of the oil seeps out before you get a nice sear on the product. And so we're seeing that while 75% of consumers are trying these products, only 20% are incorporating them into their diets on a regular basis. So we thought, okay, what's the ingredient that really makes conventional meat taste good? It turns out it's the fat component. So here at Genuine Taste, we're creating fat without from animals without harm to the animals. So we isolate a small sample of cells from the animals. They're then cultured in bioreactors with nutrients to feed the cells to create cultivated fat. And we're a B2B business, so essentially we're developing this as an ingredient, which will then sell to pet food companies, alternative meat companies, and even as an ingredient that can be used to improve flavor in like soups and sauces and things like that. So the biggest challenge facing our particular sector is scalability. So a lot of the methods used for this production are based on conventional methods in the pharmaceutical sector, which if you're growing cells to produce vaccines, you don't have to be particularly efficient. So a lot of the challenges for this particular space is how do we scale this technology and make this product more efficiently? So this is kind of based on my co-founder's PhD, but we've developed a novel scaffolding platform that enables us to produce fat in much more compact bioreactors. So competitors need around 500 liters, and we can produce the same amount of fat in 1.5 liter bioreactors. So yeah, we're planning to target the pet food sector first, and then as we get regulatory approval, move into the human food sector. It's a pretty big market. I think edible fats is I don't remember the numbers, but over 200 billion. And so even just the alternative meat sector, you're looking at over 100 billion globally. And here's our team. So I'm the co-founder and CEO. As I mentioned, I'm a current PhD student at the University of Toronto. But before this, I did a master's also in civil engineering at UC Berkeley and worked for a few years on decarbonization consulting. And then my co-founder has a PhD in biophysics, and he's really leading the work around the technical side of things. So yeah, we've been around a few years. We're a bit earlier stage than Brandon, so I can kind of give that perspective. We've raised pre-seed funding, and we're at about TRL 5. So essentially our product is being tested in smaller scale bioreactors. And so far we've created samples and sold them to pilot partners. So yeah, happy to dive in more after this.
Thank you so much for the detailed introduction. That's just amazing. Yeah. Well, Fernando, do you want to go next?
Sure, thank you. And thanks so much for inviting us. It's always nice to keep in touch with the ISIE. And thanks to the panelists here with your amazing introductions. I think it's really, really cool what you've done. Both in the agricultural sector, somehow I'm a little bit different. I have started a company on energy. We are in Guatemala, and we're focusing very much on the distributed generation of energy. In the region, we have had kind of a strange phenomenon where even though we have so much solar resource, we don't have long winters as you have in the north and in the south. We have almost always sun. And yet we only produce about 4% of solar energy of our grid. It somehow doesn't really match. And right now, Guatemala has actually become scarce in energy, which doesn't really make a lot of sense. And so we have been focusing a lot with my company on trying to address that issue and seize that opportunity as well, which sort of comes together by installing solar farms at a scale which you still can inject to the grid, but in Guatemala you have quite some benefits from a regulatory point of view, and you can sort of gain a lot of benefits of going in the smaller scale, which still makes a difference for the national grid without having to make mega projects, which is very long to create and very, very capital intensive as well. I grew up in Guatemala for my school, and then I moved to Berlin to do physics. Then I did my master's degree in Switzerland for energy engineering and my PhD in Norway in industrial ecology. So I've always been kind of around energy. And well, when I was finishing my PhD, I sort of felt that I wanted to come back and apply the things that I had seen in Europe. Coming from a developing country is quite interesting to see where, when you're living in Europe, you sort of get to see where things are going. And then my idea was to try and bring back some of that knowledge and apply it to my own country. So that's what I've been focusing on for the last 2 years now. We are now 7 members of the team, and we have about 25 megawatts in the pipeline for the solar panel farms. And yeah, we're starting to do our first big installations in the next couple of months. Mainly, we've been dealing with a lot of regulatory challenges, trying to find the clients, the land, and so on. But it's been a very interesting journey, and I'm very happy to be here to share some of my experiences with you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing, Fernando. Yeah, very international education background, and also based on your guys' the introduction for your business, it's just so diverse, so different. But I guess I think the questions we collected from audiences, well, even though you guys work in different, industry, different sectors, but those questions can also relevant to all of you. So I guess we group our questions into start your journey, during your journey, and our daily life question, also some self-reflection questions. So maybe I will start with our first section, start your journey. So the first question we have is, what was your motivation? All three of you were in university doing your bachelor, master, or PhD, and I imagine there were a variety of opportunities for you. So what inspired you to transition from academia to, starting your own company? Yeah, so maybe another kind of interpretation is, do you mind describing the moment when you realized that the entrepreneurship was a path for you?
I can start. So I would say for me, it wasn't really a moment. It was a very, very, very slow build for me. So I would say that, sort of early in my career when I was going in my undergrad, I didn't really have much of a conception of what entrepreneurship is. I didn't really know any entrepreneurs. And then I did my master's education in the San Francisco Bay Area, which is a hotbed of entrepreneurship and innovation. It's where most of the world's funding is. And so I was sort of exposed to it there, but I just never really considered it for myself because I was like, well, I don't have any good ideas. I don't think I have the temperament or the personality to be an entrepreneur. So I didn't really think of it that much more. And then during my PhD, it was the pandemic. I was rethinking everything about my life. Yeah, I started networking more, going to more of these entrepreneurship events. I met my co-founder at a founder networking event, and we just really clicked. We had the same sort of vision or passion about the food sector and decarbonization. And so then I decided to give it a try. So I think for me, I started by dipping my toes in this and getting some initial interest and then eventually went for it.
So the pandemic is good for you.
Yeah, it was very good. I had a lot of free time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I agree kind of for me with Emily's sentiment. And for me, there was no singular moment where it was like, okay, this is what I want to do, but also kind of a slow build. I think for me, my journey kind of began freshman year. Similarly, had no concept of starting anything and got involved. I knew I wanted to get into the research side. So freshman year, started doing research. And somehow I got myself into a lab where, as a freshman, I was trying to rewrite fast Fourier transforms on embedded device, which had no idea what a fast Fourier transform was. You're supposed to be in my junior year, and basically had to figure it out freshman year. And I remember the advisor in that project was very much part of a PhD is a license to learn. It's about being able to how to figure out the answers to your own solutions. And I thought that was really interesting, and I really liked that aspect. And then the next summer, I did some work at a larger company as an internship. Didn't have a super I don't know the proper word. Wasn't super engaging, was a little bit slower. And then I took a different class called social entrepreneurship, which was all about how can we use entrepreneurship with the same kind of societal benefits instead of just solely from a economic one. And so that taught the whole Steve Blank business model, kind of a lean canvas and everything with that. So that was my first kind of true exposure. Is entrepreneurship really even something that would be interesting? And then I wanted to kind of test out, is this something that I would like myself? So the next summer, I wrote my own grants to get funding to build low cost Internet of Things water quality sensor. And I was like, okay, I can self-motivate. I enjoy this. I like kind of being able to pick my own direction. I had a lucky opportunity to be a part of the Robotics and Automation Society, became president of that, grew that from about 5 people to 60 people. They went from like small projects to winning international competitions. And so kind of all of this was building to then at the point when it came to graduating, I kind of thought, I think I want to do this, but I don't really know for sure. Like, is this the right decision? And at the time, I guess Bezos now coins it regret minimization framework. I didn't know that was a thing at the time, but I did the exact same thing. I went to like when I was 50 or 60, and I was looking back on my life and I was like, if I tried something and it didn't work, would I regret that more or less than if I never tried it at all? And for me, it was a lot more of I wanted to take the jump. And at the very least, you have a really good experience, maybe get a lot of gray hair, but at least it would be something that I could go through. And I assumed any experience would be helpful if I needed to then find a job afterwards.
I would assume you never regret, right?
Yeah, so far it's been a lot of fun. Definitely did get the gray hair sooner than expected. Already getting gray before 30, but other than that, yeah, it's been great.
I've seen something that about being a founder shaves a couple of years off your life, probably just from stress.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Maybe because you live through so much in such a short period of time also. But yeah, I think I can only echo what you have said. I mean, for me, it was also kind of a process. I never felt like it was a specific moment where I just thought, I'm gonna do entrepreneurship. I think it was seeing that there's different needs, when you're doing different projects. And as a PhD, I explored it more, but also already during the masters, you're learning about different technologies and the things that are going on around the world, and you think about the good that it could do, and why it's maybe not been implemented that far. So I sort of started digging into that, and during my masters, I had the luck that I had a very active class where we all sort of felt that we wanted to do something with energy, what we were learning, but also with some sort of social impact. So we actually founded the company that I'm running now in 2018 with my master's class. We went to Bangladesh to do like a social business course, and it started just by doing some small projects of rural electrification. It came back to the same sort of route that we saw. Okay, Guatemala. I come from Guatemala, so I had this connection, but we have so much solar resource, and it's just we still had 40% of the people that were not having any access to energy at all. And it's just like it didn't click. It doesn't make sense that it's that way. And so we decided to try and do something about it. Luckily, EPFL was also, as Emily was mentioning, kind of driving a lot of entrepreneurship. They have grants for students where you can try things out without too much risk, let's say. So we applied, we won the grant. We did a pilot project in Guatemala where we installed 15 solar home systems with a small battery for the people living in very remote areas in Guatemala. And I wanted to continue in that path, but well, I got into my PhD and everything. But I always had that sort of worm in my head that I wanted to come back and keep doing that trajectory. And I think it was really during my exchange year in the US where I started reading a lot of things, and I started to have more time. I think what you mentioned both, maybe having some time to think and figure out where you want to go, what you want to do, what are you really passionate about. And it just kept coming back to solar energy, and I started looking at the things with large scale solar generation, why we don't have that here. Bought some books, which it sounds trivial, but it really made a difference for me. I just read these books on how to develop a solar farm, financing solar projects, and things like that, just to kind of start understanding. And yeah, 2 years later, I was finishing my PhD, or a year later. My wife had finished her, and we just sort of were deciding where to live. And she had the opportunity to transfer to Guatemala, which just timed very well with my graduating. And so we just decided, okay, you get the steady job. I'll try to do my own company. And it sort of worked out well so far. It hasn't been that long yet. It was almost 2 years ago now. But yeah, that was sort of the way that led me here. And yeah, getting to have the right people on board is also very important. Like we along the way, I was meeting different persons that gave me perspectives, that came on board and helped shape things. And so, yeah, for me, it was kind of a combination of all of those things: people, the moment, and really the crisis in Guatemala, which always translates to opportunity. I think that's an important thing to know now that there's so many crises going on. It's also a place where you can make a difference as well.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. Well, I think those are amazing stories, and thanks for sharing the moment. I guess even though your business is running very well right now, but I think at the very beginning, it must be very challenging, right? So I guess the next question is, what was the biggest challenge, like transitioning from school to be an entrepreneur? Did you have any like prior work experience that helped you in this process? Brandon, you mentioned you were just like undergrad student. So did you have any? I think you also mentioned you took one class, right? Like social entrepreneurship. Yeah. So maybe do you guys mind sharing? Do you have any prior work or like study experiences that help you in this transitioning process? And in those challenging transition time, how did you overcome it and just continue your business and not quit it?
Yeah, I guess in terms of the starting piece, yeah, I mentioned the one course, but then through the university, as I got more and more interested, I also did other programs. The FIT has a thing called the Innovation Institute. So we did different student competitions. Was lucky enough to win a couple of those. Did our first round was the quote unquote the like academic or the school competition round, where I think we got at the time, I think it was like 35,000 or 40,000 non-dilutive just in competition winners, which was really exciting. And it's funny to think back, like at that point, 40,000, I was like, wow, this is like game changing. And now it's totally different. But I think that was very helpful. I learned a lot. I also kind of got involved in other courses I could too. There was another thing called like hacking for defense, which was kind of the business model, but applied to how can you do things for the DoD. And it had actually had like DoD sponsors, which was really cool to kind of get more exposure to that. And then we were lucky enough to be a part of the CMU like Project Olympus, which is like a incubator / co-working space that we could be a part of. So we really took advantage, I would say, of this all the school resources. And I think I've seen that schools have gotten more and more into providing those resources. So definitely recommend that. But so what's been the biggest challenge? I think it's a hard one to answer. I think there's a lot. And I do think that from doing it, I think if you decide to take a jump, I think it has to be something you truly care about and you're passionate about, where you can be punched in the face over and over and over again and still get back up. Because I would say there's probably a misconception that it's hardest at the beginning. I don't think that's true. I think it's hard the entire way through. And if anything, the problems you're dealing with just keep getting bigger. And at least you have a larger team to help tackle more of it. But it seems like the problems just keep growing in terms of size and impact and value, which is exciting because that also means you're having more impact and more value.
Wow. Nice. Does anyone have any follow-up? Emily or Fernando?
Yeah, I completely agree with the importance of sort of, especially if you're a current student, the like incubators or accelerators or programming that's available to you is incredibly helpful, especially like if you're working on, like in our case, we're working on a physical product, not a software. So we have to have a lab where we work on our prototype. And so most of the ways we've gotten access to resources or expertise is through these university programs. So that's been really helpful. I think also, yeah, I would say it's always hard, entrepreneurship, but I would say one of the biggest early challenges for me, at least as an engineer or scientist, was sort of more around mindset. Because I think sometimes um, if you're trained in like applied sciences or hard sciences, the mindset is kind of to be like very thorough, try everything, which makes sense when you're doing research sometimes. But I think for entrepreneurship, um, you need to find the most critical path. And so like your thinking around problem solving can sometimes be a little bit different. And I think that took me some time to kind of learn and get used to.
Yeah, the mindset. Yeah, thanks for sharing that one. Yeah, that's just made me think of some, difficult moment I have in my life. Also like research, also study, also transitioning from, master to PhD, also experiencing some challenging time. Also, I feel like man's side is the most important thing. Once you believe you can overcome it, and then you can solve the problem. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, Fernando. Do you have any follow-up?
Yeah, maybe just to build on that. I mean, I think the first at least 6 months, if not more, is mainly your mindset that's driving everything because it's maybe similar to a PhD. I don't know if you would agree, Emily, but it's more like you have to push for things to go somewhere. It's not so much that is a pull, you have to sort of figure out where you're going and where things be flexible also enough to see where things are taking you. And that also means having some mental resilience to say, okay, I don't really know where I'm going, but at least I know I'm going somewhere I believe in. And that's where, as you said, Brendan, like passion is just so central because if you're not really enjoying this to a profound level, you are likely to give up before you get somewhere. And so for me, it's really that sort of mental state of knowing that you have to trust yourself and also liking what you're doing to be able to do it for such a long time without seeing a concrete reward for a while, most likely, no.
Yeah, you mentioned like be flexible. I think I also have that mindset. That I think that's also very important for like a PhD student or doing like research, because sometimes your research project can fail. You have to be, flexible enough to, to try others. Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah, so
I have a question, if you don't mind. Like to conclude the first part about this, how you started this journey, I kind of have the feeling that there's a common thread there, right? You've been in three different occasions, in three different ways, but you've been able to access like university incubators. Brendan mentioned about being part of the Robotics Society, then accessing grants for students from Fernando's perspective. And I was like, how did you access these type of tools the first time? So what was the thing that made you think, okay, I should do that? Like, was just curiosity, or like maybe you were very lucky to happen to be there at that moment? Like, how did all turn around that way?
I think I read it in some book. It has nothing to do with entrepreneurship, but there was a saying I really liked. It's luck is like a train. It can't hit you if you're not standing in front of the train on the rails. And so I think
love
it's
it.
always a combination of some luck for sure. I don't think just purely your merit. I think there's always a factor of luck, a factor of a moment where things are happening. But you certainly have to look for it as well. And I think you just have to have the curiosity to say, okay, I wanna do this. What are the resources around me? What kind of programs are there? Is there maybe some people that are already looking into that I can talk to? And so there's definitely a combination of both, at least for me, I think. But yeah, it's just about taking the decision, get started, and just start looking around and see what you find. I think most of the time you'll find something interesting.
Yeah, completely agree. I think when I think back on the past, most of the opportunities, if we haven't sought them out ourselves, were because we were like networking so much or going to so many events. And so you kind of have to, I hate this thing, but like raise your profile so people know you're there, they know you exist, and so then if these opportunities come up, they know to reach out to you. And I think also another thing that's important almost for any career path or different like opportunity you want to pursue is you should network a lot with people who like are doing what you want to do. So talking to a lot of other founders was one way we found these resources.
Yeah, just like a follow-up for I think you mentioned like networking a couple times. So I'm more curious about like how did you find those networking opportunities? That's through your supervisor or just through school resources, or yeah, how did you find those networking opportunities and those found talk to those founders?
Mostly, I think for me, just doing a lot of research on LinkedIn, like say I'm in the food tech sector, so trying to find other founders who are also working in like the novel ingredient space and then just cold reaching out to them and then also joining like I'm just going to give an example of like a local university. Here is the Toronto Metropolitan University. They have what they call zones, and so you can join them, and they have events, and you can meet other founders. Um, and yeah, that can be really helpful because often there will be like regional or city specific like grants or competitions that you can make use of.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, so so maybe let's move to the next part, which is about during your journey. So some people they're very interested in how you make the money. So they are asking, what's the primary revenue model of your business? Is it one time or subscription or usage based, and why you chose that type of primary revenue model? Would you mind sharing that?
Yeah, I can start. I think it highly depends on stage, customer, what you're looking for. I think our revenue model has evolved over time, and it depends really on where you are. So, for example, in the beginning with robotics, when you initially deploy, you're going to be continually developing it. And so the thing that's provided initially is going to become better and better and better. So you almost want a revenue model that allows you to capture that increase in value without having to constantly renegotiate with a customer what that would be. The other thing is it's very difficult when you don't have something yet to get someone to outlay a huge capital expenditure. And so there's the other piece of managing cash for us being nice. You guys are all hardware as well. So yeah, this is a great panel, but no one here is just software, which is a totally different approach. But then as you get further along and you have a better baseline, then we shifted to a more fixed model and we started selling the units because the cash was very helpful for scaling because the robots are not cheap. And so to get financing, a lot of the debt financing opportunities for early stage companies wasn't built out when we started to really begin to grow. It's getting better now. And so a lot of us always capped your equity. So if you wanted to continue to finance your growth through debt, you had to raise more and more equity. So it just becomes more difficult. So we switched to purchasing. That was a hard decision because investors love recurring revenue and they love to value that a lot more because it's easier to consistently return on. But yeah, with hardware, it's nice to get cash. And it seems like more and more investors are being open to appreciating the upfront cash for easy scaling as long as you have a subscription component, which we do.
Yeah, so your answer just remind me of the accounting and finance course I took during my undergrad. So are you guys familiar with those, like finance or accounting, management accounting when you start your business? Because I feel that's also very important, right? So how did you equip yourself with that part of knowledge?
Yeah, I had an economics minor, but I had zero accounting knowledge.
Mm,
So
yeah, so
yeah, a lot of it was reading,
just
talking to
learning
other
learning by
people,
doing.
learning.
Mm,
Yeah, a lot of learning by doing, and also like quickly researching. I found a lot of this has been something needs to get done. You have no idea how to do it. You have to figure it out because otherwise it's not going to get done. So go figure it out. And then eventually, as you continue to grow, then you bring people who are experts in those areas to like fill the gaps. But for most things, like you're the one that's doing it first, and you just have to figure it out.
nice. Yeah. What about Emily? Do you mind sharing your
Yeah. So, yeah, I will preface this by saying we're hard tech and early stage, so don't have a ton of revenue. Yeah.
That's fine.
And yeah, so I can give the perspective of a company because I think a lot of climate tech, there's a kind of longer commercialization pathway. You might need regulatory approval, or it might be difficult to secure contracts. So in our case, we need regulatory approval before we can enter the market. So as Brandon mentioned, like some of the ways you can kind of manage capital is you can either raise based on equity, you can raise debt financing. In our case, we've also generated some revenue from pilot projects with customers. So if you have these customers who are really interested in this technology, they see a lot of value. Some of them will partner with you and help finance a project and help you scale it up to bring it to market. So I guess some advice I could give is you don't necessarily have to be, I mean, obviously your company should generate revenue and return on investment for the people who are putting energy into your company, but at least within the first few years, that doesn't have to, like, you shouldn't let I'm not making money now limit you from working on a company or a startup. Yeah.
That's a common thing, right? Not making money in the first couple years. Yeah.
For hard tech, yes. I think software, it's both good and bad. The good thing is you can make money much more easily. The bad thing is then you have to make money or no one will invest in you, or it's less likely someone will invest in you if you don't have a certain like recurring revenue. Hard tech, there's usually for the first few years at least, you don't make so much money.
Yeah, but I remember in your slides, you mentioned there's at least 5 people in your team now. So people are just volunteering.
Oh, no. So this is what I mentioned with either equity investment
Oh, I see.
or debt-based funding. And there are also like it depends on the region you're in, but a lot of governments will release grants to help build like hard tech or manufacturing or climate tech or I know probably aren't so many biotech people in ISIE, I'm not sure, but like for example, if you're working on novel medicines, that can take 20 years. So I know their sort of pathway for funding a startup typically looks like you get some grants for the first few years, then once you do trials, then you might raise money from a VC or a corporate who's interested in trying to bring your product to market. So it really depends a lot on the sector, how you can finance your company.
Yeah.
Did you want
Fernando?
to? No. Yeah, no, for me it's quite different, I think, because we're not selling a specific product we're developing. We are a project-based company. So
Selling the service.
yeah, it's basically we sell a lot of services. Our main, let's say, capital is the people and the knowledge we have in the team. We don't have a lot of things to buy unless we already have a project, which is finance. So that's not really, we didn't need to raise a lot of capital at the beginning. It was mainly trying to get the company to a place where we can work there and live off of it. And that was for me just working part-time for a bit over a half a year, trying to get the business case together, the team together, trying to reach out to customers, because when you're new, people don't know you, so customers won't be coming to you. You need to create your own sort of market in a way. And then once we had enough projects, then I said, okay, then I can move to this company. And then successfully, not successfully, what's the word? One after the other, we started moving to the company when we could afford to have more employees. And that's the way we've been doing it. So it's been very much project-based. Sometimes we have consulting projects, which are also very nice because we don't have to invest anything more than our time in that. And then, of course, there is an interest in having subscription-based models. I mean, you won't be having projects forever, and it's also a little bit hard to plan ahead if you're having just the projects. So what we're trying to do is to keep the operation and maintenance of these plants. And the idea is that you sell the project and you also sell this recurring thing, which is just cleaning the things, checking up the electrical setup and keeping in touch with the client so that the client is happy, but you also keep these these more steady payments over time. And these projects last for 30 years. So the idea is that we'll have a good base once we have them online to keep going, even though we don't have new projects, for example. And then also when we capitalized, we aren't this far yet, but we are already talking to some clients in doing some joint ventures. Like for us, since we're developing utility assets that are selling energy, they have, contracts for 30 years for the sale of energy. And some of our clients are happy if we go in and put in some equity and go as a partnership, because then there's a shared risk. And for us, that's also very interesting because we build the project and then we also have some benefit of keeping an equity in it.
Interesting. I have a maybe divergent question a little bit, but it's still like a during the journey question, I want to say. But so when you said you have to create your own market, the first thing that popped up in my head was like, also you have to sell yourself in a way, right? You're new to any environment you're trying to tackle. And so like, and also being a startup, you really need to build up your own brand, I think, right? In a way, you need to be recognizable. So like my question was more like, I don't know, you're all scientists in a way, or like you're trying to create something new, but also how do you do your storytelling? Like how do you tell people your, I don't know, about your journey, about your product, and how do you make it recognizable for potential investors too?
That is a very difficult question, but I will say you have to use entrepreneurship terminology. You need to think about like what your unique value proposition is. So like what makes you so different from everyone else who's trying to do the same thing, or like what's special about you, and you need to weave that into your story. Yeah, and also don't be shy. Like if you've done your PhD, if you're a scientist, you've done difficult things, you know a lot. Yeah.
Because this is a thing that happens to, I don't know, just people in research anyways, right? They're telling you all the time, like, but what's the novelty there? What's your story? What's your like, and it has to, I don't know, show up in a paper sometimes. Like, I don't know, it has to be something that people want to read this research you're doing in this specific article you're publishing. It has to come up in a way, and it's such a hard thing to do. I think, like, at least we don't have to brand ourselves. So that's a point in our favor. But I guess it's very hard when you have to, I don't know, make your company shine from the outside so people can be interested in, right? And like contact you and things like that.
Yeah.
Just make the question a bit harder. If a person is shy, what advice would you give to the person?
And now you just make it made it harder than it was before. But no, I think it's a really good question, Federica. I mean, it's so important to be able to get out there and you know, put yourself very much outside your comfort zone and convince people in doing these things with you, where you also have to be humble and say until where you know what you're doing, until when maybe you're still trying to develop it. But for us, it was actually one of the earliest things we spent money on was branding, even though that's not so central, but it's just the image you give to people if you're trying to get them. I mean, in my case, it was I was trying to gain their trust for them to put their money into the projects with us, not with another company. And so we needed a logo that is looking good and a good website, and just to present ourselves as professionals, because even though yes, you have an academic background and maybe you've got a team of people that have some proven experience, um, people will look at for your company. It's your company they're hiring. And so for us, it was kind of important to seem very professional from the beginning, even though we were just starting out. And yes, I think it's part that, and then just trust yourself and explain what your niche is, as Emily was saying. Maybe it's not so different to writing a paper where you have to, you know, just carve out your very specific space where you fit in, and convince people about that. And for that, I think you need to be convinced about that also, otherwise you won't be very convincing. And so yeah, I think it's very important that you and your team are very aligned in what you're going to do, and trust what you're doing as well. And if you're shy, just practice. I mean, it's just you get out there and you talk to maybe 100 people after a while, and it just becomes, you just have to do it, and it's uncomfortable for sure. I don't think it ever gets super comfortable to do the sales pitch, at least not for me. But you just get used to doing it. At some point, you know the stuff well enough that you start feeling more comfortable about it. But you just have to go out and put yourself out there and do it, because no one will do it for you, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think there's not really any like one right or wrong way. I think that's kind of also the story that you'll find with this is you have to make everything your own. And so you play to your own strengths and how you want to do and what you want to do. And I think a really good distinction that I realized that we haven't talked too much about is also like, what do you want to do with a company? Because there's the whole like, do you go VC track? Do you not go VC track? Like if you're going to go VC track, you have to know what you're getting involved with. And like if you don't have to go VC track, the other track looks really nice. So Fernando can definitely explain more about that side. But I think that also depends like from a branding perspective, what you need. Because I think like in your case, Fernando, like you need like professionals and you need people who are gonna like use you to make like consult and provide services for. Whereas like a VC might not care as much about like the branding initially if it's pre-seed, and they might care a lot more about just like you and like why do you know this space so much better than someone else? In which case, if you've done a PhD, I know this isn't quite the case for you, Emily, but if your PhD was directly in the area of your company, that's an immediate like you can immediately say that I am the person that knows this better than anyone else in the entire world. And it's a very fast way to potentially like immediately build a brand with a VC, even if like you're shy, because the VCs a lot of times they might the good ones will usually at least like look for something that sets you apart on why it could be you, and they don't necessarily always say this has to be really like a gregarious or like very like outspoken person. As long as there's some path to like still being able to be successful. And I've met plenty of founders who are not the like the Steve Jobs kind of like personality, and you can be successful. You just kind of find your own way to do it.
Yeah, sounds like to be an entrepreneur, you have to be very, very clear about the vision, have a clear vision about your business. I think, well, we only have a couple minutes left. So I think one kind of a personal question I have for three of you is, I know you guys have like a team. I wonder like how do you guys develop your leadership skills? Because I know leading a team can be quite challenging, like cooperating with other people and leading a team, and you are hiring someone else instead of hired by other companies. So my question is, how did you, cooperating with other people and developing your leadership skills and leading other people?
Maybe I can start. For me, it was I mean, the team we were building was kind of figuring out what skills we need. I know sort of where I stand, but since I wasn't going for VC, maybe it's a little bit different to Brendan. I was kind of meeting people, some friends I already had, some friends that I got to know through talking to people here in the industry, and it's just I was looking mostly for the right expertise and the right personalities. And when they joined the team, we did it through equity. So everyone that's working at the team, they all have equity, which I think was possible because we didn't sell any shares to VCs. Maybe that was an advantage in that case. And so the co-workers are all my partners as well, and we are all sort of in the same ship. And I think that's helped a lot that we are all really very much pulling forward. I don't have the problem now that I have someone that I'm paying something and just trying to motivate them to go along, because we're all in the same boat, and if it sinks, we're all going down with it somehow. So that's been good for us. And then I mean it's certainly hard to be to lead the team, but I think for us it's been more because we are starting and we're building everything up. It's been more than, oh, I'm the head and people do what I think. It's just, okay, no, that's not how it works. We are all sort of having different ideas, bringing in different perspective, and we just go in the same direction. And that's been how it sort of worked. And for me, that's been very good. I think maybe further on, of course, it will change. But at the moment, it's been mainly just to keep people motivating, to try and sort of align the broader vision. And if that's done, then people will work and try their best to make the company work as well, because we sort of um, yeah, we're all part of the company in that way.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I'm just have a follow-up is what's the decision-making process look like if it's not like hierarchy structure? Like how do you guys make decisions?
I mean, it's not that we are a full democracy and everyone is voting and everyone. It's more because we have different expertise. We mostly just get together. We say, okay, we need to decide what we're going to do with this energy contract. And
Mm,
have one guy who really knows his stuff on that. And so we all bring in our comments. He's always very open to change his opinion. But in the end, if he thinks this is the best way to go, then and we're sort of disagreeing, then we trust the guy that knows most about that. And it's the same with engineering. We have a project here with very complicated topography. Obviously, me and the commercial guy want to do it because it's just a big project that would be very nice to have. But our engineering partner is very concerned about how feasible it's going to be, and he's really worried that we don't have the engineering knowledge to do it. In the end, if he says, "You guys, this we can't do that," then we don't do it because he's the one that knows more than us, And so you have to be able to trust people as well, and hear them and be open-minded to change your own opinions, because in the end, you want to take the best decision, not your decision just to follow whatever you're saying. That's sort of the way we've been managing things so far.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. Yeah. Yeah, Brandon and Emily, do you guys want to follow up on that question? I know it's past 6 already.
Yeah, I can just echo really quickly. I think, hiring the right team or bringing on the right team, growing the right team is the number one most important thing. If you get the right people, everything else is way easier.
Yeah, completely agree. Not much to add. Yeah, you really have to take a lot of time and care to find team members who are really committed to the project and the vision, and they have to be people you trust.
Oh, nice. Yeah, you guys have a consensus on this question. Yeah. Federica, do you want to say something?
Not really. I don't wanna keep you here longer than I could stay here chatting for forever, I think, but I don't wanna keep you longer than we should.
Yeah. Yeah, we do have more questions, but this is just 1 hour session. So we thank you so much for, spending your time with us and sharing your insights. I learned a lot from you. I got some inspiration, motivation. Yeah. It's awesome.
Thanks
And
so
I
much
think
for having us.
yeah.
Thank you.
You all have very interesting stories. It's been very nice to go through, I don't know, understanding your journey. So thank you for being part of this.
Yeah, it was interesting to see the common themes. You kind of already know, but it's weird to see I'm thinking of my answer and Fernando and Brandon are already kind of saying it.
Yeah.
Funny,
I just
because
wondered.
different industries, but we share a lot of the experiences, no?
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you guys joined any similar session like this one before?
Actually, funnily enough, one of the reasons I started entrepreneurship is I was involved with Society of Women Engineers, and they had a session where they interviewed entrepreneurs, and I was like, oh, if they can do it, I can do it. So it's come full circle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brandon. Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Fernando. Yeah. Let's keep
Thanks
in
Thank you,
touch.
guys.
Yeah.
Right.
You're
Bye. Enjoy the rest of your
Bye-bye.
day.
Too.